evening, and welcome to Key Radio Live, where we are going on an adventure tonight.
Woo!
Oh, man. So we're talking about Kamome's route, and this has been, so far, I think, Platy, you can tell me what you think of this. This is so far the most well-received route of the book club, I would say.
I would say second most, just because behind Shiki. Or do you mean from
so
this
far.
point? Okay, so far that
far.
we've covered. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I would say
Shiki
yes.
has blown everyone out of the water for those who have read it so far, but...
Yes. But those who are keeping in time with us, yeah, so far I'd say Kamome. I know there's a couple critiques people have with it. Like, I know Sep has some misgivings with part of it, but otherwise, yeah, I think everyone just so along for the ride.
We will definitely get to those because I have a few as well. That's not to say that it isn't still amazing, because let's be real, it is. Kamome herself has this effect on people where, like, she is one of the most waifu-y key characters we've ever had. Everyone falls in love with this girl.
Honestly, yeah.
It's
hilarious too, because when I did the demo, I was the most tsundere towards Kamome. Like, she was the type of character I was like, oh no, she's too much, I can't like her, but secretly I really did like her, and I was really looking forward to her route, but at the same time I was like, oh, I don't want to do this route yet.
Same. Yeah, like, okay. I'm just gonna say it, she is her miniature manipulative side, which, let's be real, she does have. At first I thought it was kind of annoying. It grew on me so much, not because of what her story is, but just because that she never went any farther than what we see in that first interaction.
Yeah, and she never uses it to be manipulative, like, in a malicious way. She's very much just playful, and honestly reminds me of the kind of stuff I would pull with my cousin when I was younger. Like, I would, well, no, I was worse than my cousin. Bless him. I bullied him a bit because he did it back at me.
Right, and the thing is, Kairi does feed it right back at her.
Yes, it does.
It's such a cute dynamic that I can't get too mad at it for more than, like, 10 seconds.
He also falls into it without realizing it, that when you are somebody who likes to tease playfully and you have somebody who's very easily teased, you can't help but play with them just a little bit. And I think
for real,
they toe that well. Because once he does get wise to it, she kind of stops, and she doesn't push it when he seems like he's getting annoyed.
Yeah, the closest she gets is that I want to, when she says I want to ride on the suitcase. But then once we get into the cave, and we're obviously jumping around because it's Key Radio Live, she actually kind of holds back a little bit on telling him that her leg has been bothering her until he brings it up.
Yeah, like if Kairi didn't find out about it how he did, she never would have said anything if she had a choice.
Exactly. So basically, she has won over the heart of so many people. Like, my PFP right now is a Kamome drawn by Mitsuna, who's fantastic artist, by the way. Check out her work. And also a Keyverse member who is one of the biggest Kamome fans I know. She, on her YouTube channel, she has a Kamome doll that she just absolutely loves. So check that out too. I'm shilling one of our members now, but
Yes, she deserves it.
For real. It's some amazing stuff. All right, so getting into the real meat of what we're talking about here, Kamome route is kind of different from all the others in the sense that she is the only heroine who is not a native to the island or related to a native to the island. Which is strange. Am I missing someone?
I don't want to... Well, Tsumugi is also a foreigner. We know that. So they're kind of both.
Yeah, okay.
But Kamome
I can't elaborate on that.
Yeah, exactly. So Kamome has fewer ties to the islands because she doesn't even have like a specific friend. Like Tsumugi, at least she has somebody she already knows on the island. Kamome, she kind of just, we see her wandering. So
She's
she doesn't
traveling.
really have, yeah.
And I actually really like that because it is kind of fitting for the route that is the least connected to all the others, but she already has that instant connection with Hyri in that way that they don't know anything about this island's folklore. So when they're looking for these keys with these cute little notes and the riddles and stuff, they're both in the exact same boat, and that's just something weird that we haven't really seen yet. Hyri has been talking to a lot of people who know this island really well, and it's especially prevalent with heroines like Miki, but here, just a totally different dynamic. And it's funny because, like, aren't Miki and Kamome two of your favorites?
Yes,
and they're very different from each other. I think like they are so different.
My all four. Yeah, my four top favorite Summer Pockets girls are all pretty radically different from each other. You got Shizuku, Miki, Kamome, Shiki, like they're just, and that's half the girls right there.
Yeah, it's just. It's interesting how that works. Okay, Manpig says, to be fair, none of the Summer Pockets girls are alike, really. In terms of personality, I do agree, but in terms of upbringing, I think a lot of them are really similar.
Yeah.
So, like, Shizuku, Miki, Shiroha, and Ao, and also the two boys, I would say all have similar enough upbringings where when you meet them and go on your route, you are learning things from them about the island, which is something different from Kamome.
Yeah,
if that
they
makes
all have
any sense.
They have the island values. So the close-knit family, everybody knows everybody, everyone knows the lay of the land. They're family.
Right, and this is one of the few routes that actually doesn't talk about that theme, because there are a whole bunch of other themes at play here that I'm like itching to get into, you know what I'm saying?
So at the same time, they do have little hints of it, because they have to like take that special route once they know Nomiki's on their tail, and they have to go through everyone's houses. So you get a small glimpse of all these people who are like, oh, it's been so long since someone's used this path, and it's just, you can tell that these islanders are just used to it. They let these kids go through their homes without
I also just
even
love that
question.
They're all on board with it. Like, there's that one old man who clearly knew that you're trying to avoid getting shot with the water gun.
Yeah. So even without that being a focus, it's still there, and I think that even makes it even better crafted when you don't have to make it the focus, but you still have that feeling.
It speaks to the consistency of Summer Pocket's writing and Torishiro Jima's location.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's all just lovely, lovely stuff. But when we're going to get these keys and stuff, I find myself really invested in the island just in a different way, because I feel like I'm learning what's going on here with all of the characters, and it's really just a lot of fun. The only other thing I think we really need to get at with the keys is something you and I were talking about in the book club chat, so I may as well bring it up now. We got to talk about the bad end.
Yes. So there's one bad end from the very last key, and rereading it, I was kind of... It almost felt too sudden for how it was put in. I was kind of just like when I first read it, I was really taken aback. Like, is this how the route is going? Is this a bad end? I didn't understand what was going on. And then Hyri just up and forgot everything about Kamome. Just seemed very jarring and kind of weird, almost. But on second read, I was kind of like, knowing what Kamome is, for him not to have too tight of a emotional tether to her could make sense for him completely forgetting, as well as he got triggered by her cheering for him, and that's why he like stopped and fell, because it felt like a similar situation to being
I did not put that together.
in the water. Yeah,
that the cheering was what did it.
Yes, because I was like, why did he even start freaking out in the first place if he's fine in the regular route? But the one difference was when he chooses the right birdhouse, Kamome doesn't cheer for him. She doesn't really do much while he's trying to climb and get there, but she does while he is. She like cheers in the same way people do for Hyrie when he's practicing in the water. So I was like, okay, maybe that was the trigger.
My mind is blown right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so amazing.
It made a lot more sense when I realized that, and I was like, okay, now I understand why he all of a sudden had a panic attack and got triggered like that.
It's very fitting for Hyrie, because the thing is, when we get that bad end, the way the sound direction happens, where you kind of get that weird fade out, and also the visual direction where you get the blurred zooming out, is the same way it happens when he faints in the pool back in Shiraha's route. So
yep, exactly.
There it's not tied to a bad end, but it's the same exact style of... It's the same thing that happens to him. I think it's the same feeling he gets.
Yes, yeah, they do it exactly the same. So you know it's some kind of almost PTSD flashback.
Yeah.
Like, for people who have that, a sudden noise could sound something like what they'd experienced before. So that was my way of understanding why it happened that way.
Absolutely.
And then I think from something that trigger was enough to also make his memory unstable and kind of wipe that memory of Kamome clean, because it was, he's running from his problems, so he ran from the thing that triggered him.
Right. Now, the memory thing, we can't get too deep into it because a lot of it is recontextualized with things you are going to learn later, but it is somewhat related to the island's lore. And we kind of get glimpses of it later in the route where Kamome is... I don't even know if I can really say it.
It's very hard to skirt around for this because it is a new mechanic to the island that kind of directly ties into other things.
I think I can say what it is, but we can't say what it does. Kamome is one of the iridescent shades. We don't know why or exactly what it does, but that's what Kamome herself is. And we know from Shizuku's route that it is related to memory, because we have seen directly that when the iridescent shade at the shrine touches Shizuku, that all of her memories come flooding back into her.
Right.
So
now,
we can put those things together based on what we know right now.
So it outside of the thought of Kamome being an iridescent shade, because I'm not quite convinced that's fully what it is, because she herself says that she was a manifestation of herself while she was dreaming. So it kind of goes into the realm of astral projection, which I don't know a lot about, but I just know it happens a lot when you're sleeping. So it's kind of is like...
that is not new to Ki, for sure.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, yes, like in Miki route, how she also was getting through dreams, like through her iridescent shades to get to Hyrie. Like, Kamome's is a little bit different because some of her iridescent shades don't just contain memories that happened to her, they also contain her imagination. Because Hyrie completely dreamed up the book scenario via Kamome's butterflies.
Right, he was having a lot of visions of it when he walked ahead of her on the train tracks. And that's where we get those adorable CGs of child Kamome and her friends, which are drawn just like they would be in a children's book, which is really cute. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It does put a lot of it together. And unlike Miki, Kamome has a wild freaking imagination. So, like, it's fitting for her character.
Yeah, so I can't quite say if she's fully like herself a shade. I feel like there is a bunch of butterflies kind of that somehow mixed with another part of the lore that I can't get into, kind of combined, swirled together with other astral projection theories that she projected her spirit into another corporeal form.
Now, remind me, because you read it, like you finished it yesterday.
Yes, I read
for the second time.
Yes.
Did Kamome visit the island as a kid? I know Sagi. I think Sagi said she did. Isn't that right?
So they would have, yes, because they went there to a neighboring island for Kamome's father's
the one that Sagi is living on.
Right. So that's where Sagi lives on. So that was where they were based. But they did go to the island. I think not like in the summer camp. I think that part was still
part of the
story, because Kamome had to stay indoors. She could hardly walk. Like, she stayed on that suitcase just like as her perch. She could hardly walk by the time they were there. But once she started slightly getting better, they found the cove, and the island officials allowed them use of that cove and the cave. So Kamome was there helping with the ship on that cove. So I don't think she really adventured outside of that area.
Right,
by what
which
I can tell.
Explains why her knowledge of the area gets deeper the farther they get on the adventure. Because, like, we see when they're walking around the train tracks, they're going in circles for a while, and Kamome doesn't really know that they have to get onto a second train track at 3 o'clock when they're doing the thing. But once they're in the cave, she knows kind of which way to go, and once they get to the beach, it's very obvious that she has been there.
I just had a sort of thought come to me as you're talking. So something I thought was weird was the first flashback Hyrie got was when Kamome was nowhere near him. So that would mean an iridescent shade would have had to touch him outside of, like, being in contact. And then she just suddenly regained all of her memories when she got to the boat. So I almost wonder if Kamome was in a way traveling the route of where her butterflies of memories were kind of anchored. So along the way, like, they were encountering her butterflies, and as she came in contact with them, her memories started going in, like how Shizuku's did. And I think maybe at that last point, a butterfly of the memories of her mom and them working on the boat might have finally hit her, and that's why it was enough to make her vanish and go back into her original self.
It wasn't necessarily as dramatic as it was with Shizuku, but also, actually, that's explained by the fact that Shizuku's memories were mostly painful and Kamome's were not.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
But that could be.
Man, that's good.
I think maybe along the way, there were her butterflies were scattered about, and this was kind of Kamome following a route of memories to try to live out the desires she had.
Live out the story that, she and her mom kind of came up with together.
Yeah.
Like, her mom wrote the book, but it was based on Kamome's, crazy imagination. Yeah. Wanting to have childhood adventures.
Yes. And speaking of, like, the book and just this concept of a mom putting her child into a book and it exploding, and, like, this girl being able to make a promise to these people, it's such an adorable concept. Like, as a writer myself, just the thought of putting your kid into your book and it exploding, and just your child who can't go anywhere, you can't do anything, have your normal life experiences, get to see all of these people love her for who she is outside of that illness. It's such a beautiful concept. And for Kamome to have such a loving heart to want to give these kids a real life experience that she could hardly even have herself at that point, it's just it shows what a big heart. Yes, she has such a big heart, and it's so adorable. And it makes her illness all that more terrible.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something that I said in book club chat regarding the whole the book thing.
Mm-hmm.
Forgotten Childhood book is such a better premise than Forgotten Childhood friend.
Yeah, I'd have to say, I was so convinced that Hyrie and Kamome once knew each other.
Oh yeah,
in person.
And I think Nijima Yu, this is why Nijima Yu is a genius. I think he knew everyone was going to think that because Ki had done it at least 3 times before.
But usually I can see something coming, and I'm pretty on the spot. But this was one of the first things in media ever. I got totally trolled.
You got
debated
trolled.
Everything. I was totally wrong, and I've never been that wrong.
Same.
So from a writer, reader, my mind was blown. So yeah. I can't fault it too much on not being another terminally ill girl projecting herself from the hospital, because it just they did it. Yeah,
is so different from any of the others, and I won't say who they are because I don't want to spoil earlier works. But you all know who they are if you've been around Ki long enough. Spiral says, and the best part is they're literally telling us what is happening the whole route. Yes, and that is actually one of my gripes with this route. It's the only route in Summer Pockets that actually gets worse on a reread.
Really?
I think my second experience with it was a little weaker than my first because knowing all the twists did not recontextualize it. Miki, when you know what's really going on, everything that happens earlier in the route makes it kind of just clicks where it didn't before. In Kamome, the entire point is for it to not click on your first read, and then you get it later. When you already know all of that, it does make it makes it feel a little bit half-baked on a second time through.
I guess
Did you not feel that? Because you read it for the second time as well.
I didn't really feel that, no. Just because for me, I was testing the route, so I was very...
So you had to read it a lot.
I was focused on the words and everything a lot of that first read. So after a certain point of reading so much, you're proofreading, you kind of forget specifics on what you just read. You kind of get hit with an ending, and then it just kind of all blows up in your face in the moment. So I didn't have a lot of
from working on Canon HD, definitely.
Yeah, so it kind of was like I had just some vague memories of everything that happened along the way. So a reread kind of was like, oh my gosh, so this was here where I thought it was this, but really it wasn't. So I kind of was just along for, yes, I knew it was coming. A little more. Yeah, so I think that might have just partially been because I had to focus so much on words, and the rest of the route was kind of a blur past the point. But it still felt like, when you're rereading anything, you know what's going to happen. So it just felt the same as any other reread for me.
Right.
But I just see what you mean.
Be clear, this is a minor thing from me. The route should be good on a first read. So this is and Kamome route definitely fits that.
It's kind of hard to recreate a bomb like Kamome's route on a reread when you already know what's going to happen. Yeah, I can see how some of that magic would be lost, but for me, rereading it just reminded me of that magic and gave me even more nostalgia.
Which is lovely, and that seems to be generally what people are saying. Like, I am in the minority here. I just want to make that super, super clear. So, I'm going to read Spiral's next comment, and then we'll move on to some of the real good stuff here. One thing that made the pacing perfect is that we learned the twist with a third of the route still to go. So there was still time to live the knowledge and feel the emotional impacts, unlike some routes that spring it at the very end. This has not been an issue in Summer Pockets for me.
I definitely see what Spiral is saying, though.
I do too.
It never was a problem for me that they spring it at the end. But what it did do is made the reveal being that much into the route still to go was like even more surprising, because where I thought the route was going to end was not the ending, and it kept going, and it really surprised me in another way.
Yeah, exactly. So we can talk about that last third of the route, because I think that's where it peaks personally, in the part where Kamome is not there very much.
I will not give confirm nor denial of that, because I'm not sure where I'd say it would peak, but
let's be real, it's all peak, but
I mean, when you have someone like Kamome, it's hard to say like the part without Kamome is the best part. But I think as far as the overarching arc and Hyri's arc, I think I would say I agree.
This route does a lot for Hyri, and of all of the original routes, like not the Reflection Blue routes, but just stuff that's in the original Summer Pockets, I think this route does the most for him personally, because it gives him time to use what he learned. So he's using the things he learned mostly from Sagi, but also somewhat from Kamome, to create the adventure that Kamome wanted to see. He doesn't know why he's doing it really, and he doesn't really need to, but it is kind of something that's helpful for him to heal himself, because he came to this island to heal his broken wings, and in helping others, he realizes that what he was missing was really just drive.
I would definitely agree with that. Another, not just like that aspect, because definitely having a task centered around and dedicated to making an experience for others, there was not so explicitly said, but sometimes going back to your childhood and remembering like what gave you passion then, or what kind of gave you your first boost of imagination, can help you kind of return to your pure self. So it kind of reminds you who you were and where your passion really lies. So I think returning to that childhood book that gave him like a lot of excitement was kind of a good form of catharsis, because it brought him back to a time that he wasn't worried about the pressures of others. It was just good, pure fun. And he wanted to help everyone have that emotion again. And he wanted everyone to remember that part of that was because of Kamome and her mom.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know, it really warms my heart with things like that, because
I recommend doing this, by the way.
Yes. Like I had
go back and look at the
books
media you loved in childhood.
Yes, because it gives you this certain just soothing feeling and comfort to go back to that.
For real, definitely.
And I just think that was something that really touched me in this route, is feeling like it's acceptable to do that. You don't always have to be an adult. It's okay to go back to that pure version of yourself and keep that alive and remember it.
Yeah. One thing Utori says a lot about Summer Pockets is that you get the most out of it if you try and look at it through the eyes of a child. Like try and remember what it's like to be a child and be excited about these kinds of things. And that's what keeps Hyrie going? Is it particularly normal to be looking for keys on the island as a 17-year-old? Not really.
No.
It does, it feels like something out of a children's book. And I'm like, oh, wait, but that's what makes it so exciting, and kind of remembering. I'm really just reiterating what you said, so I'm going to wrap it up. But
but really, that kind of going back to your one thing, rereading did help me see how much their adventure does flow like a storybook, and how much what Kamome says sounds like concepts from a storybook. That was something that didn't click to me the first time that a reread did help with for
when
me.
You don't know that the book, The Adventures of the Cat Paw Whiskerneers, when you don't know that that's really the central focus of the route, it does kind of change that. So yeah, I guess there is some recontextualization here.
Yeah.
It's just you don't get trolled the second time like you do the first time.
Exactly.
Ironically, this fact is why I hate Inside Out.
It is, because part of the plot of Inside Out is they show how Riley forgot something that was precious in her childhood, and they let that die. Like that made me very upset, and just like it hurt a lot, because I hold childhood purity so cherished.
I think they just wanted her to understand that sometimes you have to let go of the experiences, and it's bittersweet, but that it's okay to be sad about it.
But in my point, I don't think you have to. And I don't think I think it just put too much emphasis on this needs to happen, and it's unavoidable that it happens. And it's like, but it didn't have to happen. It could have very easily just, she remembered, but that's completely outside of tea, and I could rant on that for hours.
The thing is, it's an interesting comparison. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, because Bing Bong will forever live in my heart if it won't right.
I definitely do think Kamome Route handled this particular issue with remembering childhood better than almost anything else I've read. Which is just a really, really big deal. So, Man-Pig, I can't even. I'm not going to read what Man-Pig said, but it's funny. I'll just say that. All right. I have a little bit that I want to add to this, just about this route from a meta perspective, because I did mention before that it is the least connected to the overall story, and I still think that is kind of true narratively, but Summer Pockets would be a significantly worse VN without Kamome Route, because it has that commentary on why we are here in Tori Shirojima. So if I had to describe this, the message of this route in one sentence, it would be: good stories have the power to bring people together who would otherwise have gone their entire lives never knowing each other.
Yeah.
And it really comes out at the very end when Hyrie is taking those other teenagers who were also fans of the book on the adventure. They never would have met otherwise.
Yeah.
And now they have friends. They have new friends that they met through this random story that they read together as kids. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. And I think it's can be taken on a meta level where it is like a representation of how the Key fandom works. Because
that's where I was gonna go with this too.
Yeah, you have
I'm like, that's us.
A lot of us in the post show of last week, I think it was, we were pulling up the images of the islands that Torishirojima is based off of, and all of the locations within, and we're just all like, we want to go there, we want to go there. It's very similar in that feeling of what that book did for those kids, and the whole point of Kamome wanting to make a key part of that story real so that people could go there and just like meet up and have a fluff and amazing time experiencing that and reliving that adventure. Like, from the perspective of us, it would be amazing to go on a journey throughout all those different places on a little adventure, seeing all of the things, pointing out that's the place that was based off of the Chateau residence, that's the cave that Kamome adventure is supposed to take on. Like,
right.
It would be amazing. And just thinking of it that way, it's very easy to empathetically put yourself in place in this story. Like, out of all the routes, I feel it's very easy for myself to be put into that and
Mantic
feel it.
Says, I love community.
Yes, I do.
And I think this route hits harder for those who read this story with other people, in a way.
Yeah.
It's just the feeling I get, because if you have people to talk about these stories with, it kind of really just drives home that this is so much fun for that. Like, I made a point after the first time I read Summer Pockets to say, this route taught me the correct way to think about fiction and the importance of it and why people should read fiction. Because even though the iridescent shades are obviously not real, this story is not going to directly apply to anyone's life. Summer Pockets is just not that kind of story, but the messages do. And this one especially applies to just about everyone, I would say.
And I think it's also, like, the fact that it's a children's book. I like to try to read things or experience things not for the purpose of critique. I'm not on these podcasts to give my opinions as this is the only way it is. This is the only way you can experience a media. I think it's so important to go in almost with a childlike disbelief and just sit back and see what something can teach you, like you probably would have when you were a kid. You didn't sit there wanting to outline, the average kid. I was a little bit more picky about books when I was like a preteen, but like before then, when I was even younger, I didn't go in with expecting certain things. It's just the world was open and vast and the story could take you anywhere. And I think Summer Pockets really does encapsulate that. You need to go in expecting just a good time and be open for anywhere it takes you.
Yeah. The Adventures of the Cat Paw Whiskerneers, I think, is a book that, like, the target age group, I would say, is probably like 7 to 12.
Yep.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Because Kamome, I think, was 6 when her mom made the book.
Kamome is 17 in the main story, and it was 10 years earlier, so 6 or 7.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that is worth, like, thinking about what your mindset is like when you go into this story. Because I think Key in general, the biggest question you should be asking for any Key story is, what did they want me to learn? You know? And if you have an answer for that question, I think you understood the route.
Yeah.
That's just my take on it.
Yeah. Like, I go into Key in general just wanting a good story and to feel something.
Yep.
I don't necessarily have to learn something every single time, because I don't know if I learned something.
Sometimes they teach you things you already know.
Yeah, that too. Like, after a certain point, it's just kind of a reminder of things you once learned.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I'll add this, a lot of people have told me that the Reflection Blue Book Club in Keyverse has been the most fun they've had rereading something ever. And when I think about why, it's because we're all reading it together. We're all on the adventure together to make some memories. And that's just something really beautiful, something that brings us closer together to this island we can all call a second home now.
Exactly. So. And that's the other reason I've been on the, because I had to keep my mouth so sealed while testing, and now I finally get to just say everything. I want about Summer Pockets because it
This
has
is
been
how
such
Manpei
an
was
impact.
acting last episode.
Yeah, I
Talking
believe
about
it.
Umi route.
Yeah, because it just imagine having to sit on all this and having nobody to discuss this with. Like that was so hard. I had to completely stay
It was hard
away from
enough
the
on
regular
Tori
chat.
where I got to read Reflection Blue early.
Yeah, so it's been such a blessing, and if you ever have an opportunity to participate in a book club like these, do it because it
Please.
really does open your perspective to more than your own, and you just learn more from the people around you, and it's always good to have an open heart and mind.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Anything else about the route we need to talk about, or can I get into some future stuff?
One thing I just want to say is I feel like this route was the closest to how the Reflection Blue routes feel. Like, there is sort of a staunch difference in the feeling between a Reflection Blue route and an original route. And I feel like this one's a good bridge between that because something about it just feels just as vibrant as those.
Yeah, I do agree with that, definitely. The use of the insert song helped a lot.
Yes. Like I can't imagine
was
that
so
without
good.
the insert song. And the added CG for Reflection Blue is
Yeah,
just
the added
stunning.
CG, is that the one you're talking about? Manpig says this route has the best
Yeah.
CG ever of
Yeah,
all time.
that was the other thing I wanted to mention.
It's the one by the fire.
Yep. Well, there's another very, very good one, but that's a topic for a different day. But the fire CG
I
is
mean,
the best one.
this route, okay, I'll be honest, this route has the most mixed bag of CGs, but it has some of the most beautiful ones in the game. Like,
Yes.
the standouts to me are the one by the fire, the kiss at the end.
When I forgot about that CG when I was rereading and I was just like,
so pretty.
Kiss. It was so good.
I love the kiss CG. And also the one, like, right close to the end where Kamome is sitting on the mast with everyone around her.
That route, that CG made me cry like a baby the first time. The
For
second
real.
time, I was like almost hiccuping, trying to hold back my sobs. And my sister
Yep.
saw me and she's just like, oh, poor thing. And just like, leave me alone.
Spiral says, I love seeing
God.
the ship. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, seeing it come to completion is just very, very nice. It's so...
Hi, I'm getting
it's so
emotional
fun.
again. Crumbs.
Yeah. It's a good route. What'd you rate it?
I feel like I've said 10 out of 10 every single time I'm on this, but it's Summer Pockets and I'm biased as all get out. So I'll just say 9.8 because I did have my
That's
little...
what you said for Shizu.
Oh, no, it was.
No, I like it. It's funny. I am a... I don't like decimals. I gave it a 10.
Yeah.
And I so
can't
far there hasn't
rank
been a single route below 9. There is one coming, but and it's not the same one as yours. So
Yes, right. I will not be on the podcast for my least favorite, but I will probably still have my opinion read.
Oh yeah,
I will try to
I'll
be
read
nice.
everything in chat. I try to, and like, here's the thing. Key Radio Live, I like when it leans positive, but the thing is, no work is perfect. So
Right.
that stuff is going to come out, and I do think generally we still lean positive because Summer Pockets is really good.
Oh yeah, like every single route hit me in an emotional way. Even if
Right.
the one route I do still just, I'm not terribly looking forward to reading it because this is going to be my third time. But
Speaking of which, next week, we have 2 episodes of Key Radio Live planned. So, Saturday, we will be having a Key Radio Live episode on Stella of the End, because Saturday morning in the US, we will be having a Key Channel stream. Key Channel will be streaming a whole bunch of new info about Stella of the End, and then that night, myself, Utori, and Manpig will be discussing everything we learned on it. And then Sunday, we will be covering the next route of Summer Pockets Reflection Blue, which is Sumugi. So
Ooh.
I'm still figuring out who's going to be on that episode, but stay tuned. It's gonna be a wild one.
Oh, and another thing that we kind of didn't mention a lot, but it's just, I think it would have been like, I missed it, so I think it was right before I went to sleep, but there was a celebration for Heaven Burns Red half-year anniversary.
Ooh.
So it's
Half a
amazing.
year.
It's amazing that it's already been a half year that it's been out, and they even announced Chapter 4 is coming soon. So hype for that, for those of us who are reading
hype for that. Hype for Heaven Burns Red, Chapter 4, hype for Stella of the End, hype for the 1 remake.
Sorry, there's also more Heaven Burns Red, but
more Heaven Burns Red, okay.
I think it was, you could use the Switch now to experience it. I don't but
on PC.
Oh, Steam. Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. I knew there was something else.
Yeah. If it were on the Switch, I would be on
it
today. Like,
yeah,
no,
I don't.
Steam on PC.
Right. But that's only in Japan.
Yes.
I think it is. Yeah. So, but still, they are starting to open up their field of vision. So let's just keep our fingers crossed.
That we get it over here. I would love it over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got.
There's been a lot of singles.
All that, we got the 1 remake, we got some new character art that we're not going to have a podcast episode on until we get a little more info, but Manpig will definitely be back for that. And then get in your submissions for the book club, for the Manpig Award and for the Everlasting Moment Award, because we are coming up on the deadline for those. That is, I believe, 3 weeks from today. So 3 more weeks to get your scenes and your reviews in. So,
okay.
Yeah, and then we'll announce the prize packs, the prize winners on the final episode. So that's all I have. Platy, do you have anything else?
I don't think I do.
All right, thanks for joining us for Key Radio Live. Good night, everybody.
Good night.